Right guys, welcome to the first video of its kind for the Bonkers Dynasty League, and my god, this league is absolutely bonkers. It's quickly turned into my favourite Dynasty League, or one of my favourite Dynasty Leagues. It's definitely up there. The settings that we've got in this league I think are absolutely fantastic. It's the most fun, there's the most strategy going on than any of my other leagues. I'm sure a lot of you feel the same as well. So I'm excited to get into this and talk about this league as much as we can, and try and have some fun with it as well. So I'm going to try and keep this video as short as possible. I don't want to take too much of your time up. I still want you to enjoy watching it, obviously. So we'll see how it goes. But I haven't really got any set sort of direction for this first video specifically. So any ideas that you have, things that you want me to talk about, or things we can bring up, then fire them away in the chat, fire them away in DM to me, and we'll see what we can do. We'll get going. So just taking a look at the league itself, what I like about this league specifically, it's a 14-team superflex. So obviously there's strategy going on there, or no strategy going on there for some people, on quarterbacks and how many you want to have, what you want to do with them. Are you focusing on getting quarterbacks in the drafts? Are you focusing on taking as many Devy quarterbacks as you can, or are you going to trade for veterans that are playing now? 14 teams, that's 28 starting quarterbacks. There's only 32 starting quarterbacks at a time in the NFL, so obviously that's a bit of a tricky one. On top of that, we made it start 2 tight end. Tight end is a bit of a barren wasteland in most fantasy football, as we all know, so I tweaked with the settings a little bit to try and make it a bit more even, and to try and make some more tight ends relevant. So obviously it's a 0.5 PPR league. We added an extra 1 point per reception for tight ends, so it's a 1.5 PPR for tight end league, which makes a lot more tight ends relevant. There's still not obviously going to be as many tight ends scoring massive points like you do with wide receivers and running backs, but if I hadn't have made it 1.5 PPR for tight ends, most of the teams in this league would have been starting tight ends that score practically 0 points every week in one of the tight end positions. So I think we had to do that, and I think it's worked quite well so far. It's also bumped up the values of tight ends along with quarterbacks, so that's definitely a good thing. My absolute favourite part of this league, though, is the Devy that we put in here. It is my first full-on Devy league, and it's just so interesting because you've got to try and figure out what you want to do with your roster. Some teams started off, Danny Redders in particular, started off going pure as much Devy as possible, whereas other teams started off not taking any Devy whatsoever and went all veterans, to try and get probably a winning edge this first year, to try and win the first season. Both strategies are equally as valuable and equally as good. The teams that have took more Devys straight off, they're hoping to dominate really in years 2, 3, 4. Maybe not so much year 2, but year 3, 4, 5. If the Devys they've picked and the Devys they get hold of turn into good NFL starters, and there's no reason why they can't do that. I do think there are going to have to be a lot of teams constantly on the look to rebuild in this format. We've got a few already going on. Reno is probably looking at rebuilding. Harris is definitely looking at rebuilding. I've actually started a bit of a mini rebuild, although I've not gone into a full rebuild. And there's some other teams that at the end of this season might want to do the same, and go into rebuilds. So we'll see how it goes. At the moment, we've got quite an interesting league standings, I would say. There's quite a few actually really good teams in this league that are doing really well this season. Matt is absolutely storming at the minute with 14 and 6 along with Riggs, and then we've got Yoink and Jadies along with Third and Short on 12 and 8, all three of them each on 12 and 8, and then the last playoff spot currently we've got Mouse, who is on 11 and 9, and then we've got 4 teams on 10 and 10. I'm not planning to make the playoffs. My team might end up there, we don't know. But the other 3 teams, so Seahawks, Danny Redders and S. Davis, all got a fantastic chance of making the playoffs this year. As you all know, playing fantasy, once you're in the playoffs, it's anyone's guess. It's a luck of the draw a lot of the times, look at the matchups. You've got to have a lot of luck. So them teams, any of them who end up in the playoffs could quite easily go on to win the whole thing. Quite often you see, how many times have you seen a team that's 13-0 in fantasy in the regular season go on to get beat by a team who's 7-6 in the regular season, came in 6th place in the playoffs, and that team goes on to beat the superior team throughout the regular season in the championship game. It happens quite a lot, so we'll see how it goes anyway. But yeah, it's definitely a good setup. If there is any recommendations or anyone wants to recommend any rule changes, whether that be scoring, the way we've got the scoring set up, or even positional setups, or the way we do Devi, we'll definitely vote. We'll have a league vote at the end of the full season. So once the championship game is finished in this league, we'll have we'll get some ideas banded about, and we'll have some votes, see what people think and what people want to do. It would have to be a quite high majority vote to swing it over. We'll say 10 out of 14. So anything that we do vote on, if it gets 10 votes for, then we'll change it. I'm quite happy with that. So again, get your ideas thinking, get your idea cap on, and we'll see what happens. So what I'll do now is I'm not going to have a look back at this week's matchups that's just finished for week 10. We'll just have a quick look at week 11 and see what key matchups we've got going on that are going to affect the league in a meaningful way anyway. So, look at that. Week 11, number 1 against number 2 in the league standings. Matt against Riggs. That should be an interesting matchup. Just looking at some of the specific matchups in particular. Roethlisberger against Brady, both top 3 fantasy quarterbacks last week. Edwards-Hilaire's got a good matchup, and Henry, who it's going to be a tough match against Baltimore, but sometimes these running backs they can produce in tough matchups. So who's to say? And Henry's obviously a great running back, so you don't know what's going to happen really there. The Joneses, Marvin against Julio. Again, Julio's has a potential to be a game breaker. He can, any given week, he can put up 20 plus points, and he usually does it more often than not. But he does have the tendency some weeks to put up barely any points, depending on game scripts and game flow. And it probably depend if Ridley plays and is out targeting him as well. So we'll see how that goes. So I've looked at the the tight end situation here. So we've got Ebron and Logan Thomas for Matt, and then we've got Gronkowski and Schultz for Riggs. So let's just have a quick look at Logan Thomas, actually, see what points he's been putting up. See, no other league. There's probably no other league settings, no other league that you're in, potentially, unless they've got the same tight end scoring system, where Logan Thomas is putting up 16 points, 20 points, 15 points. What you'd usually see is this, 3 points, 1 point. And I think that just makes this league so interesting. Tight end landscape's great in this league. So yeah, so that's going to be an interesting matchup. We've also got Mouse against Yoink as well. Mouse will really be looking to get a win this week, just try and cement his place in them playoffs, put his foot firmly in there. And Yoink as well, I'm sure, will be trying to get a win in there to, again, cement his place in there. Let's see what other matchups we've got here. So Danny Redders is playing Rabo. That's going to be quite an interesting matchup. So Danny Redders' team, who's co-owning with Norse, they actually started off in probably a big rebuild sort of draft. They went highly Devi, young players, but actually the players they've picked are putting up points on a weekly basis. So I think they've actually decided to go for it, and why not? Because when you've got a team that are putting up points, you're not going to end up with a low draft pick anyway, so you might as well go for it and see if you can get in. Once you're in there, like we said, who knows what's going to happen, so we'll see how that goes. Rabo's got a very strong team, actually. I think he's been a bit unlucky this season so far. He could quite easily finish in the playoffs, so we'll see what happens there. Seahawks will want to try and get a win as well this week against Frapp, so we'll see what happens there. Third and Short, very unlucky this week, week 10 against me. I think he lost by like 0.8%. Because of Rudolph's fumble, first fumble of his career in 10 years. That's an unlucky call. That against JDs, who were both 12 and 8 as well. So that's going to be a close matchup. One thing I will say is, I think there's one person in this league who hasn't got a team name. There's some absolute crazy team names in this league. I think someone kind of unofficially made it a league thing to have these certain types of team names that most people just went along with. To be fair, London Monarchs might actually be dirtier than all these bloody things that are named in teams anyway. There's only one team that hasn't got a team name. We need to get that sorted, Aris. Let's get some team name going there, and we can all have a good laugh when you change it. So yeah, as I said, guys, if there's anything that you think we can talk about, or any ideas that you want me to do in these videos, so this is the first one, so I'll try and keep it short and sweet. Nothing spectacular in here. Just so we can get this ball rolling. I'm more than happy to take ideas, and I look forward to it as well. Try and keep this going on a weekly basis, so we can have some kind of some fun with it, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Right, cheers, guys. See you later.